to my Building Trust live stream, talking all about defining trust itself, why it's important, how it can help us foster healthy, happy relationships and get better at networking and nurturing our environment to actually make life easier. Building trust is something that people have told me I'm really good at, so I am sharing how I'm able to do that and going through some steps and stages and things that we can all replicate and you can do to be called trustworthy. Like, what is it that we can break down and look at that makes somebody trustworthy? So this is the agenda. I'm Life Coach Rav. Welcome to Building Trust live stream. So as always, go through a check-in. The check-in's not necessarily trust related, but I like to just ask everyone past, present and future questions. We'll define what it is by somebody called Simon Sinek. Why trust matters. Who is that somebody? And we'll look at the characteristics of somebody who we could call trustworthy, look at a trust cloud and some synonyms and associated words. 4 steps to building trust and actually getting to the point where people then start to call you trustworthy. We'll look at actually relationships with trust and relationships without trust and separate the two. A trust bank account, and I'll talk in terms of deposits and withdrawals and how we can balance that bank account and make it net positive. Finally, ending on keeping promises to ourselves and actually not just necessarily being called trustworthy, trusting others or others trusting you, but actually you trusting yourself. Like, how can you trust yourself? Say stuff, believe it, do it, and then build that self-esteem, build that confidence, build that trust in yourself. Like, really, that's what I'm trying to figure out here. Like, how can I trust what I said in the past, which means what I say I'm going to do now gives me the belief to take the action to actually trust I'm going to get there in the future. And that's what I want you to be able to do. Build that self-esteem, that experience, that confidence, and then a final thoughtful question on trust that we can all ask ourselves to project into the future and help build it. All right, let's do that. So the first thing on the agenda is a check-in. I'm going to ask 3 questions. My typical questions are past, present, future related. So something that you've achieved in the last week. So think of somebody in the last week that you've interacted with that you would trust. Somebody, how you feeling now? So that's not trust related, but just emotional check-in. And then going forward, what one skill do you want to get better at? Doesn't necessarily have to be trust, but one thing that you want to get better at. So someone I've interacted with in the last week that I trust, it's easy to use, my wife. So I'm going to say somebody that I can absolutely trust. Weird one, but my dog. You can always trust a dog to be a dog, and I would never expect him to behave like any other animal. So I can always trust he can be him, his characteristics, and he's 10 years old now. He's 10 and a half, so I know him very well. I've known him since he was 12 weeks old, since he was a pup. So no human being in that reference. There's lots of human beings I can trust, but I'm going to say a dog. And the reason I'm saying that is a lot of expectation around trusting other people and behaviors, and we expect people sometimes to behave like we did or we do. And it's like, why did that person even do that? Another reference is you can always trust a snake to be a snake. And it's not a positive reference, but people are who they are and you can trust them to be themselves. That snake reference reminds me of a scorpion story, and I'll come back to that a little later on. How I'm feeling now. Yesterday I was feeling tired. Today I'm feeling good, actually. I did some flat pack IKEA furniture. Son's room's looking a bit more organised, nicer, and yeah, no, I'm feeling good. Second live stream in a row, and I want to keep that consistency and that streak going. Going forward, what's one skill that I want to develop? It's being able to talk in the moment to people and share experiences and have that interaction. Making YouTube videos is a long feedback loop. I'm making a video or I'm filming it, I'm editing it, then I'm posting it. And only once I've posted it, after that period of time, am I getting delayed feedback. Whereas in a live stream, much more active feedback. So I'm interested to know and see how that develops and be consistent with it so people can trust that I'm going to turn up, I'm going to be here and deliver some value and educational content in a style that actually is true to me and helps me as well. That's really what I want to do. I want to share stuff that helps me become better and helps other people in whichever way. So I want to build the skills of live streaming and talking kind of in an interactive sense. Okay, so what is trust? Simon Sinek, he quote here is, trust is built on telling the truth, not telling people what they want to hear. And a short video I watched on him, he shared a guy who worked at a hotel. He was being served at a bar and he was sitting talking to the guy who had real good charisma. And actually, he sat there and talked to this guy who he hadn't known, he just met for a lot longer than he intended to. And he asked him, do you like your job? And the guy said, I love my job, without hesitation. And liking something is transactional, loving something is emotional. And then he went into a conversation around, actually, this guy works at another hotel and the culture is completely different. And it was because when every time someone from management, not even his direct manager, someone passed him, it was like, what are you up to? And that pressure and that checking in, it was like I keep my head down. He was like, I keep my head down at the other hotel because I don't want to get in trouble. Here, I'm asked by all people who don't even not necessarily manage me directly, saying, how are you doing? Do you need anything? How can I help? And it's that empowerment and that freedom and that actually people genuinely care, which gives you that relationship, that trust that actually if I make a mistake, people aren't going to knock me down for it. They're just going to help me correct it and work together. And that is real telling thing where actually are you tarnishing people and telling people off when they made a mistake, including yourself, how critical and harsh you're being with yourself, or actually you being kind to yourself and saying, actually, I made a mistake. Let's figure out how to fix it. Let's not make that same mistake again. So trust is building that over time and having a culture where people can say things that aren't necessarily easy to say, but are the right things to say to help us move forward, whether that's feedback, whether that's actually owning up to mistakes and otherwise. There's an iceberg analogy, and I love this. So communication is a very small part of what you see within a person. What you don't see is the trust that's built around that communication, and it all really fosters around relationships. Some advice I got from a guy I used to work with, and really, really wise advice, which works and helps in any relationship, is under promise and over deliver. If you can say that you're going to do something, can you sell yourself short or small of what the thing is, and then you either deliver it quicker, better, or on a grander scale than you've actually promised, people's expectations are exceeded. And Domino's Pizza, a guy called Rory Sutherland talks about this, where pizzas, people used to phone up a pizza shop, say, I want my pizza, and then they'd wait for their pizza. Just looking at their door, like waiting for the pizza. And there was a massive amount of complaints saying, well, I've been waiting for my pizza for ages, still hasn't come. What Domino's did was they put a map of where the person is and the timeline of when that pizza is going to get there. Your pizza can be expected in 30 minutes. The delivery timeline from ordering to delivery didn't change. It was about 30 minutes anyway. But what had changed was the expectation Domino's put on the customers to say, we will be with you in 30 minutes. And you can see where we are, so that people's expectation was, all right, I've ordered my pizza. I can see it's going to be half an hour. I'm happy to wait that half an hour. But it's that expectation and that communication of, let me share with you what I'm going to do. And I've learned that over time. I've made a commitment. Can I stick to it? Yes, wicked. All right, next time, I'm going to stick to it. Am I going to be on time? Am I going to cancel last minute? Am I going to be early, and am I going to order a drink so that when you come, I'm already there with a drink? I know your favorite drink and I've ordered that already. That builds a really great level of trust. If something does come up that I can't make it, am I sharing that, communicating that, and telling you, actually, as early as possible, sorry, this has come up, I need to reschedule, is that okay? Rather than just hoping that the other person cancels, or last minute saying, sorry, this has come up, I can't make it. And the next time, if I made plans and cancelled last minute, if I made plans again, how trusting do you think that person is going to be of me or you if you cancel last minute? And it's that communication. Things come up, share that, say that. If you're going to be late, don't try and rush. Say, look, I'm running a little bit late. I just wanted to let you know. And then when you get there, apologize sincerely. And people genuinely are kind about it. I found with sort of trust, and that is built over time. I tell people all the time, like in the first conversations I have with people, it's quite a open, getting to know type situation. And if people say they trust me, I was like, look, don't trust me. Let me prove over time what I say will come true. If I say something, let time pass and allow me to prove that what I'm saying I will come through with. And if not, then if other people say they can trust me, that's their perception, that's their perspective, and that's great. If other people say I'm trustworthy, gives me a good foundation of trust. But how can I build more trust with somebody I've just met? And somebody else telling them that they can trust me is awesome. So when somebody says they can trust you, or go speak to that guy, he's trustworthy, go speak to that girl, she's really trustworthy, and they're saying that about you, then take that feedback and accept that. Look, you know what? Somebody else is calling me trustworthy. I am clearly doing things that are leading to people calling me trustworthy. How can I do more of that for more people to then trust me with more responsibility, with more things, and then have that freedom of actually these are positive things people are saying about me. That is the underlying stuff that we'll look at. Who is that someone? So if you think to that first check-in question, who is somebody in the last week that you can trust? What is it about them? What characteristics that they have do you trust? So I'd like you to put in the comments when you're watching this, what are the characteristics of trust that that person has? Think about it, that makes you trust them. And if you're thinking about yourself, why do you think people trust you? That is really key and really important to sort of recognize and remind yourself of, because if you say something and you do it and you repeatedly do that over time, that stacks, that builds, and that builds character. And it's like what is the subset of things? And we'll look in a short while the 4 steps that you can use to actually have more trust. And it's not a shortcut, it's not a hack, it's not a trick, it's genuine things and skills you must work on to build a skill of trust, build relationships, actually talk to people and have that connection to the people around you that you interact with on a regular basis. But think back to who is it that you trust and what is it about them that makes you trust them. It can apply to other skills, right? So it's like if I want to develop a skill, I can break it down into smaller skills, but also I can find somebody who's great at the thing, who is good, better than me at this moment in time at the thing I want to learn. Can I connect with that person? Can I find a way to get closer to them? Can I learn things from them that help me build those skills? Who do I trust the most? Who do I trust more than myself? And who can I learn that from? And that applies to all skills. There's a massive access to people and networks that we have. And often when you compliment people, say you want to learn from them and ask them for the help, people are happy to. In my experience, people have never said no. They've found ways to help me, even with all the things that they might have going on. Look, I see what you do. Like, honestly, you have a real great way of building relationships, and like people just seem to warm to you and really trust you like very quickly because of how you are. And I want to learn from you, and I want some of that. I want people to sort of say the things about me that they do to you. Can we just sit down and talk through some of that, because that's what I want to get better at. And that's some of the conversations I've had. I've put it in written format, in emails, and Yeah, I've had great responses. So if you want to build a skill, find someone who's good at that skill, ask them for help, compliment them on it, ask them for help, and let me know how it goes. I'm interested to see if that turns into a sort of coaching mentor relationship. Even if it doesn't, and you learn something from a one-off interaction, that can give you something to just springboard off. So yeah, let me know in the comments. Trust cloud. So few words associated with trust, and this is what I'm talking about, the subset of skills. Like rather than building on the big thing, right? How can I run a marathon? It's like, all right, how do I just take that next step? How do I build my leg strength? How do I build my stability, mobility, my tendons? How do I build my stamina, my cardiovascular strength? How do I build my mental strength? And it's these small things. What music do people listen to? What better trainers can I get? What footwear can I wear? What clothes can I wear? And those micro things that just stack. And in terms of trust, okay, she got accountability. It might not be your fault, but can we take accountability for fixing it? That's what I feel about this whole state of the community that I live in, and just generally the state of mental health and well-being. Like people need help. I feel like there's parts of the world and parts of life that are just aren't operating and working in the way that they should, that they have in the past, and things are broken. But pointing at them and saying that they're broken doesn't help fix them. I have to do things and get out there to try and help fix and help people and build some sort of and sense of community. So this is me doing that within the live streams and the life coaching. Reliability. Can people rely on you to be there? That's a tricky one to balance because sometimes you lean on the same people because they're always reliable. This is a great time for me to tell my scorpion story. You can always trust an unreliable person to be unreliable. If you know somebody's always late and you book something for a certain time and they turn up late, you shouldn't be surprised that they're late because they're always late. What you can do is tell them that the booking was slightly earlier to give that buffer time in. And there's a story about a scorpion. Scorpion's walking across a bit of land, hits a river. Scorpion, the scorpion wants to get to the other side of the river, but he can't swim. So he sees a frog and he says to the frog, "Can you give me a piggyback ride to get to the other side? Because I can't swim." And the frog's like, "No, no, you're a scorpion, you're going to sting me." And the scorpion says, "Why would I sting you? If I sting you, then you drown and I'll be on your back and I drown and we both die." Frog says, "Fair enough. Okay, cool. Hop on my back, I'll give you a ride." Scorpion gets on the frog's back. Frog starts swimming across the river, helping the scorpion get across. Halfway across the river, the scorpion stings the frog. They both start drowning, and as they're drowning, the frog said, "Why did you sting me?" And the scorpion says, "Because I'm a scorpion." You can always trust people to be who they are. And as much as I would love people to take on different characteristics, that's unrealistic. That's a utopia that doesn't exist. So if you know somebody is a certain way, then expect them to be that way, not your reality or your perception of them. They're, when they behave in a way that you have seen in the past, they have built up that sort of perception and personality, then you can trust a scorpion to always be a scorpion and expect that which will help you build reliability into people's characteristics, even if it's not ideal. It's honest, it's real, it's not the best. Integrity. This is a hard one for me. So I keep integrity. I try to do the right thing when no one's looking, and I'm comfortable that if anyone followed me around with a camera, follow myself around with a camera a lot of the times, I would be comfortable that what I do on a regular basis, what gets seen, is something I'll be proud of. I'll be proud if somebody saw my full day because I have integrity. Even when no one's looking, I feel like I'm doing the right thing. Respect comes with that trust, and then you get the more sort of rewards for that, I suppose. Vulnerability. Making a mistake is okay. And if I make a mistake, and I do this with my kids, so if I make a mistake, one, I'll say sorry. Two, I'll own up to the mistake. And then be like, I'm human. Nobody's perfect. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'll try not to do that again. I'll fix it, or I'll do something about it. And that allows other people to then own up to their mistakes. And that, again, is not people hiding away, but it's actually people owning their mistakes and saying, look, especially with my kids, right? If they've done something bad, I don't want them to hide it. I want them to say, look, I broke this thing, I did this thing, and let's fix it. Let's figure it out together. That's the relationship I want. But that comes from me by owning my mistakes and saying sorry, saying, look, I've made a mistake, and that's hard, very very hard. But it gets easier over time. And if you own up to small things, if you say sorry for small mistakes, it allows that vulnerability to be shared by the other person, and it allows you to build up to bigger mistakes to then overcome the bigger stuff and the biggest challenges in life. So that's what I'm trying to get better at. Honesty goes hand in hand with that, and then consistency. How you show up is how you show up. If I am always this way, then people can trust me to be that way. And I, with the live streams, great example. I want to be consistent with live streaming, so I have to show up, and you can trust that I'm going to show up in the future if I've shown up all the previous days. And there's streaks and habit streaks and things I can do on a regular basis, but the consistency builds trust because you've done it so often. People expect what has happened to continue to happen. So you need to build that bank of history and experience to show what you've done. Similar to a job, if you're going for a role, they'll ask you, what's your experience? Because if you've done it before, chances are you can consistently deliver going forward in a similar capacity. All right, 4 steps. So there's 4 steps to trust that we can break down. And I really want to make it easy for you to just not understand the real application of this, but actually go step by step on the micro things. So the first step is actually, if you're in a conversation with someone, not just, how do you build trust? How do you build trust in 4 steps? The first step is to listen. Listen actively to understand, not to just respond. Actually, if I'm in a conversation, ask an open question and sit back. Take in as much information as I can. And there's some things like verbal nods that you can do to acknowledge someone and just say, yeah, yeah, okay, cool. And let them speak. Not try and jump in mid-response, but actually sometimes in the middle of what people are saying, we can have a thought and want to action it and say it straight away. It's about pausing, it's about calming ourselves and taking that in, having that thought and parking it, and then when they finish speaking, then be able to say that point as well as others after what they've said, and continuing to listen and take that in. Paraphrasing what people have said, and if somebody says something, sort of saying it back to them in a way that lets them know they've been heard. And finally, summarizing. Summarizing is a great piece to then actually, did I hear it in the right way? If I have, people look at me like, do you know, I feel heard. Yeah, bang on, nothing to change. Or if I summarize and I've got something wrong, it gives us a point where actually, no, that's not quite right. We can actually unpick some of the stuff that I haven't got quite right. So listen to understand, not just to respond, but actually take it in and empty our brain of what our thoughts are and really, really be in the moment and be present. Step 2 is to ask questions, ask follow-ups. So if there's a gap and someone says something you don't know something about, say, look, tell me more. I haven't heard that before. What is that? And learn in a conversation. You want to get value from a conversation, and you want to give the value as well. And that exchange builds that relationship and that trust. If there's anything emotive, so step number 3 is acknowledge emotions. People feel and do things that they want to do emotionally more than what we necessarily need to do or have to do. And if you think about your biggest purchase, often it's an emotional purchase as well as maybe a necessity, but there's an emotional connection in there. And if you acknowledge somebody's emotions, they feel heard. That feeling of, I can empathize with what you were going through or what you've been through or what you're sharing with me, and I can just hear the emotion, and I want to acknowledge that within the sentiment of that conversation. And that can help you again actually feel like you're in a conversation, not just blind. I'm not talking to a brick wall. I want to have an exchange here. So step 3 is acknowledging someone's emotions, validating that you don't necessarily, or you may not have necessarily felt the same way in that situation, but you can feel it. And then follow through. So if somebody says something to you and they might say they've got something on the weekend, after the weekend, ask them, oh yeah, you said you had this on, how was it? You know, you went to a concert, well, yeah, talk to me now. It's wicked. Like, I was listening to that music after you spoke, and I like this song and that song. Did they play that song? All of that stuff. Like, follow through with that piece. So I'll pull that up here in terms of the 4 steps. Step one: listen to understand, not reply. Ask questions, follow up questions, and relevant questions. Because if you've been listening, the questions you should be asking are in line with what you've heard. Acknowledge people's emotions, step 3, and then step 4, follow through. So, based on that first interaction, what can you reference when you see or speak to somebody again from that first interaction? One really, really important thing when you meet somebody for the first time is to remember their name. If you say somebody's name, as soon as they say it to you, hi, my name's Rav. Rav, nice to meet you. Ah, Rav, cool. Oh, my name's. And then if you say their name a couple of times, try and say it 3 times within the first sort of 30 seconds without it sounding too much, and remember their name. People will really, really appreciate that, because you're not just talking to another person, you acknowledging them as a human being. I remember you, I remember your name, I remember what we spoke about. Let's pick up where we left off. That's a beautiful way that you can not only build trust, but actually, just like I said, build relationships, build a connection, and that emotive piece is there. All right, so with or without, I'm just going to pull this up actually. So, with trust, there's better communication, greater collaboration, stronger relationships, and better well-being. That's been my experience. That's been in the research in putting the live stream together, and actually, with that, it fosters just an easier way to live, because you're not always checking up on people. You're not always feeling like people need you for everything. It feeds into sort of delegation. If you have people that you need to do stuff without you being there, then you can talk to them about it and trust that they're going to do the thing. And if they can't, they're going to come to you with questions and checkpoints to say, actually, I got stuck here, help me. Or I wasn't sure what to do, I thought I'd just ask. And that just makes life easier, because you've got people around you who you can trust and then get more done. Without trust, relationships suffer, teams struggle, people hide problems, and feedback is ignored. And feedback for me is an important one on what am I not doing, and what do I need to work on, and what am I doing well that I need to do more of. Asking for feedback, being receptive to that, and then acting on that and sharing with people. Ask for feedback, you shared this is what I've done about it. This is now where we're at. We've got another chance for more feedback. How can I improve even more? And that just open loop is really helpful. Within the agenda, I mentioned trust bank accounts. There's actions that we can do to deposit and add. You can use a fuel analogy, so like fill the tank or add to the trust bank account. And there's withdrawals. There's actions and things that you can do to take out of the bank account or empty your fuel tank, reduce it. A few things are so listening, being honest, showing empathy, and being consistent can add to the deposits of a trust bank account. Withdrawals are gossiping, talking behind people's backs, breaking commitments, and like I said, things are going to happen. But when they do, as soon as they happen, if you can share why you're no longer able to make that commitment and an alternative at the earliest opportunity, that still helps with building trust. But actually, if you can keep to your promises and keep to your commitments, that helps. But if you break them, that can ultimately be a withdrawal. Being unreliable feeds into the same thing, and blaming others, not taking that accountability, that responsibility. It might not be your fault, but can we take responsibility rather than saying, oh, it's that person's fault, it's that person's fault, it's not me. Yeah, it might not be you, but how can you be helpful in part of the solution? Final couple of things for me are, I've talked a lot about how we can build trust with relationships and other people around us, because we are social beings. This helps us with interacting with people at work, our families, our partners, and we want to keep that trust, right? If I have made a promise to somebody, one of the biggest promises I've made is marriage to my wife. I want her to be able to fully trust me, and I want to fully be able to trust her. And we trust each other. And that's a relationship that we have with each other, and we show up every day and we keep that commitment. And it's a verb. We continuously show trust to each other in that relationship. But I want to look at ourselves here. This is the most important thing because it feeds into your confidence and your self esteem. Keeping your promise to yourself. If you say you are going to do something, find a way to do it. And that's why promising yourself things small scale and doing them is much more helpful to your self esteem than making a grandiose, massive promise to yourself and then falling short of it. Because it then says, I said I was going to do this thing and I didn't do it. I started this thing and I didn't finish it. And those things stack up, that compounds, and that, it feeds into our psyche, and the negative thoughts kick in like, oh, I didn't finish that thing, or yeah, but I said I was going to do that and I didn't do that. And I'm 6 months further down the line, like 6 months later than when I wanted to start the thing, and I'm no better off. So keep the promises small to yourself and tick the box. Try and find a way to keep the promises to yourself, to build up your self-esteem. And within a very short space of time, if you say something, if you write it down, you mentally engaged with it, and then you do the thing, and then you think about it, you make a promise to yourself, and you do the thing, you make a promise to yourself, you do the thing, and that spiral is a positive spiral, and you can get really good momentum quite quickly. So one of the biggest pieces of advice around trust is trusting yourself. The best way you can trust yourself is to keep a promise to yourself. The best way to keep a promise to yourself is to keep those promises small enough so that you can achieve them, and over time rely on what you are saying to yourself, knowing that what you said in the past has come true, so what you say now is more likely to come true. That way you can then start making bigger promises, and you'll find, you'll see something like, how do they do so much? How do they do all, great example is Elon Musk, because he's made small promises and that's built up NASA. Now he can say, I'm going to, go to Mars and I'm going to do some crazy stuff and actually pull it off because he believes he can. He's proved he can, and the people around him believe him, and they are all heading in the same direction. And that's what you can do. You can be that driving and leading force where people have seen your evidence, your past wins and your successes, your promises. And if you're public about it, or if you've shared that and then people have seen that come true, people are going to be bought into that future. And my final question is, what can you do for people to call you trustworthy? So I actually think the second last question that I asked around keeping your promise to yourself is the most important thing. But then further than that, what things do you need to do for people to call you trustworthy? It might be one of the 4 steps, and which one of those do you need to focus on the most? Is it listening? Actually taking on what people say? Is it acknowledging people? Is it the questions? And can you get better at asking questions, whether it's open or closed or relevant questions, probing questions around what the person's saying? Or is it actually following through? Like, I've had a great conversation with you. Do I need to then schedule something a week from now to just remind myself of the thing? If we've talked about a milestone or a particular event you've got going on, can I add that to my calendar, which reminds me to actually speak to you about it? Because relying on our brains is for me at least, somewhat unreliable. But my manager told me in the past, if it's not in your calendar, it won't get done. So no matter what it is, put it in your calendar. And even if you don't do it at the time, you can move it to a later date. But just if you schedule time for it, it's more likely to get done. And that has that's been true for me. I've put stuff in my calendar, and even it pops up, and I can then move it if I need to. But if somebody says, "Can you do the thing?" I'll be like, "All right, yeah." Put it in my calendar, or let me put a reminder for it, because I'm likely to forget. Or I'll tell people. I'll use other people as checkpoints. Okay, yeah, I'll agree to do the thing. I'll promise to you I'll do the thing. If I haven't done it in the next 3 days, message me and remind me, because that means I've forgotten. I'll do it in the next, if I do it straight away, great. If I schedule it, great. But if I haven't done it in the next 3 days, please come back to me, because might mean I've forgotten, and you can just remind me, and then I can do it in the sort of following day or so. That you can use other people as reminders and checkpoints, and then if they don't come back to you, you can say, sorry, I forgot. That's why I did ask you to remind me, but now that we're here, let's get on with the thing. Anyway, that is me on a few things that we can do to build trust. One thing I do at work that has, and I do with coaching in terms of with my clients. One of the first things I do is send a questionnaire. It's like speed dating. Any movies you watch, what motivates you, what have you achieved that you're proud of in the last 6 months, how are you feeling at the moment, who inspires you and why, any sort of things that you're watching at the moment on Netflix or what have you. And I'll send that questionnaire out because then when I first meet clients, I have a few sort of commonalities and a few things that can help me very quickly get to know something about somebody. And I'll share a few bits about me so that we can share commonalities and talk about those commonalities and then actually move on into coaching, personal development. But it helps us very quickly get to know stuff about each other, like speed dating, and then build that trust, build that relationship because we've got crossovers of common ground before we actually go into the development and coaching conversation. Agenda, so check in, somebody you trust, how you're feeling, and going forward, what can you do, what skill can you build on? What is trust? And Simon Sinek's definition of that is being honest, even if it's the hard thing to do. Why it matters? It can help us with our self-belief and self-esteem, our relationships, whether that's partners or family. It can help us with our friends and network and business and work and colleagues and generally all social interactions. If you build trust, you can have better relationships. Think about somebody who might be able to help you build trust. If it's me, reach out and I'll help you more than just this live stream. If it's somebody you know, ask them. The trust cloud and some associated words around that, and actually, are people saying these things about you? One good exercise you can do is ask a few people to say 3 words that they would use to describe you. You might get a bank of words from different people, and then that might build up a picture of what people think about you. The 4 steps to building trust. So we've got listen to understand, not reply. So just listening presently in the moment. Ask questions, whether that's open questions, who, what, when, where, why, how. Closed questions. So is this what you meant? Probing questions. So you told me about this, tell me more. Acknowledge the emotions and understand and have that emotion intelligence or empathy around what someone might be feeling and acknowledge that emotion. And then finally, following through. With trust and without trust, we looked at actually how our relationships can be better with trust and how they might suffer without trust. And then similarly, that trust bank account. How are you making deposits? How are you filling up people's trust tank? What are you doing to withdraw or empty people's trust regarding your own self-perception? Think about that and think what you can do to make more deposits, fill up people's tank, and actually build trust. And the final thing is keep a promise to yourself. Keep it small. And I want you to put in the comment below one thing that you're promising to yourself. I want you to say what the promise is and put a date on it. And based on all those comments, any comment you put with a date on it that you're promising to yourself at that particular day, and if you put a time on it, I will reply at that time to remind you of the thing. That's my way of helping you keep a promise. So if, let's say, on December the 25th, 2026, you promise to yourself that you're going to wake up at 6 a.m. and have a glass of warm water, and put that in the comments, at that time and date, I will comment on that YouTube comment. So if you subscribe and put a notification, then it will come up on that date and time to remind you, have you drank water on the 25th of December 2026 at that particular time. That can help you in any sense. And if this has, then again, I would love some feedback on how this has gone in terms of what stood out for you, what your main takeaway was from this. But that's me for another day on the live stream. I'm Life Coach Rav. This has been my live stream on building trust. As always, peace out, stay blessed.